Hey everybody, hope you guys are healthy and safe. So this is the Nothing Phone 3. This is a product that Nothing calls its first ever flagship phone. So as a result, the Phone 3 is priced a little bit higher than Nothing's previous product. So this guy starts at about $800 for 12 gig RAM, 256 gigs of internal storage. You can get double the storage and 16 gig RAM for about $900. So yes, this price is relatively high compared to Nothing's previous offerings, and as a result, I've heard some backlash from people usually in regions like India or maybe other parts of Southeast Asia. But I think in the US and in the UK where Nothing is headquartered, this phone's price is reasonable and it's not considered too high because $800 is still quite a bit cheaper than what Apple or Samsung ask for their flagship phones, but you're getting a phone with performance that can kind of match the two big guys' flagship phones, and also has a very unique design. Because like I said in my Nothing headphone review, when you buy a Nothing product, you're not just paying for specs and performance, but rather the design element, because Nothing clearly puts a lot more effort into making the phone stand out from the pack than many other OEMs or phone makers out there. As for whether or not the Nothing Phone 3 looks good to you, that's a matter of opinion. I think it looks very nice. Now, I think by now most of you guys already know that Nothing moved away from the glyph lights with this new flagship. The glyph lighting was a trademark of Nothing's previous phones. It's like a strip of lights that light up to show you basic information. You don't have the lighting interface anymore. Instead, you have a little screen on the upper right corner. It's a black and white screen. It shows dot matrix display, just like Nothing's signature design. So this screen can basically do the same thing as the glyph lighting interface. It's designed to show you contextual information when the phone is face down on a table. So you can just glance at the back of the phone to have an idea of, say, who's calling, instead of needing to pick up your phone to check. Now, because it is a screen, you can also see more information, of course, like your battery percentage, charging status, and also the time. You interact with the screen by pressing on the back. Now, this is not a physically moving button. Instead, it is a touch capacitive panel that's located underneath the glass back. But when you press into it, you feel a little bit of haptic feedback, and you need to press into it with a little bit of force so you won't accidentally activate the button when you're just holding the phone like this. Now, you have a triple camera system here. This design has been very divisive, but again, I think it looks nice. I think it's very cool how the periscope zoom lens kind of sits all the way on the edge of the phone. I'll talk about the camera performance a little bit more. Let's look at the rest of the hardware. So around the front, you have a 6.7-inch OLED display. It's a beautiful looking panel. It gets well over 2000 nits of brightness. You can see the screen outside. The bezels are completely symmetrical, so you have a really good looking screen. The phone weighs about 218 grams, which by 2025 flagship standards, I don't think is heavy at all. And the overall in-hand feel, it's very similar to an iPhone 16 or 15 Pro Max. The phone is powered by the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8S Gen 4. Now, this is not Qualcomm's highest tier flagship chip. It sits below the 8 Elite, but it is more than powerful enough for basically 99.9% of us. Like, even if you're a heavy gamer or you're editing videos on CapCut or LumaFusion, the chip can handle everything perfectly fine. I think, again, some people have been pushing back saying this is not a flagship chip, but really it's a flagship chip. It's just not the highest tier of what Qualcomm's offering right now. And I think it's a good compromise to shave $50 or $100 off a phone. Because honestly, if you tell me right now I can buy something like a Fold 7 for $200 cheaper, but you use a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 inside or Snapdragon 8S Gen 4 instead of the 8 Elite, I would make that trade-off. There's a 5150 mAh battery in here that can be charged at 65 watt speeds and also supports 15 watt wireless charging. So the wireless charging is a little bit slow, but the 65 watt speeds, I guess it's not that fast compared to Chinese foldables in China, but again, if you look at this from a US, UK perspective, 65 watt speeds, it's very fast. The phone's also rated IP68 for water and dust resistance, and the haptics and the stereo speakers are excellent.
Have you made me? Not yet. Right, mentality-wise, you just gotta have a relentless mentality.
So I would say all the components here, from the screen to the in-hand feel to the kind of craftsmanship, build material to battery and charging, is pretty much top-notch. The only areas that you can kind of nitpick and argue it's not the best of the best, it's the chipset, because it's a little bit lower than the 8 Elite, and the camera system. Now, the camera system here is not bad at all. I actually think the main camera, 50 megapixel f1.7 aperture, is quite good. The sensor size 1/1.3 inch, more than large enough for most people. But on top of that, Nothing's camera UI has improved. You now have a bunch of film simulation filters, like the same filters and picture profiles that I love using in my Vivo phones. It is now here. Basically, with these film simulation profiles, you can kind of recreate the look and feel of shooting on like a classic retro film camera. It's like a trend that smartphones are moving towards now, instead of that overly digital, overly HDR look that was popular like 4 or 5 years ago. So the main camera can absolutely capture some great shots, and the periscope camera, it's also really good during the day. It's a 3x reach, so about 70mm, but the sensor size, it's a little bit small, 1/2.75 inch. But if you have good lighting, whether it's during the day or even like nighttime in a major city with a lot of street lights, you can still get some very nice looking 3x telephoto zoom shot, and you can do in-sensor crop to get a 6x zoom that is kind of near lossless quality conditions. Then this zoom lens does fall behind what I've been using from Vivo or Xiaomi or Oppo. But then those three phones have the best periscope zoom lens on the market. If I compare this zoom lens against like the iPhone 16 Pro Max zoom lens, it actually holds up very well and wins in some areas. You're watching 4K 30 footage shot with the Nothing Phone 3 right now, 4K 30. I am on a bicycle in Taiwan. This is the ultra-wide camera. The ultra-wide should be pretty soft. And then you have a telephoto lens right here. This telephoto is giving you background compression. So you're watching main camera footage right now with the Nothing Phone 3. So this main camera. I will do the 3x telephoto zoom. So this is about 10x zoom right now, 10x zoom, and I'll back out to main camera, out to ultra wide. The ultra wide camera, it's unfortunately a little bit weak. It's also a 1/2.75 inch sensor, so small, and then in low light conditions, it's just very soft. But in general, I am just not a fan of ultra wide photography anyways. Like I shoot using the tele lens most of the time, so it's a weakness of the phone, but it's not a big deal to me. You also have a 50 megapixel front-facing camera, and the selfie camera is quite good. Now let's look at the software, because I think this is what helps set Nothing phones apart from many other phones out there. So I have to come closer to show you the interface. So I really like Nothing's interface. This is Nothing OS 3.5. So by default, the app interface is all completely black and white, but I find it a little bit hard to identify my apps when it's in black and white. So I just leave it in color, but I still think it looks very stylish. So one of the things I really like about Nothing's interface, it's the interactive widget. So I have a recorder widget right here. I just have to tap onto it to begin recording. And you see that nice little animation, the red bar that fills up that little pill. I like that. It's like a little nice touch. I also have a compass widget here, which is awesome because if I'm going on a hike and I need to check a compass, I don't need to open the compass app, which takes up the whole screen. I can check the compass right here, just on the home screen. And then you have a digital clock right here with a second hand that is constantly moving. Again, it's a nice little visual touch. I just like interactive widgets because they add some liveliness to a home screen. They make a home screen feel alive. And it's why I love some Chinese software so much, like Vivo's Origin OS. They also have a lot of interactive widgets. I think something like a Samsung One UI or Google's Pixel UI, they're a little bit lacking in liveliness sometimes, and Nothing OS looks nice. What else? You have a Do Not Disturb widget here. I like that I can toggle Do Not Disturb by tapping again on the widget without needing to go into an app. And you have an interactive music widget here that shows you the album art. Although the album art's a little bit slow, so sometimes when I'm switching tracks, it doesn't keep up right away. But you can control music directly just by tapping on the widget. You can skip track by swiping. So see, I've switched to another track, but the album art has not caught up yet, but it will. I really like that when you scroll through the photo gallery app, you see this little bar right here to show you how far up or down the album you are. But then when you tap on the little bar, the bar becomes like a little circular finger shape that kind of glides along your finger. And then whenever I tap on a bar to turn into a little circle, I feel a little bit of a haptic feedback. In fact, like I said, the haptics on this phone are excellent. Like this software, if you remember when I reviewed the first Nothing phone, I thought the OS was a little bit overrated. It was just black and white. That was it. But now it is like a visually pleasing, or at least visually unique software that has like a little bit of attitude and vibe, and I really like that. Battery life is really good too. I'm a very heavy user. When I go out on a weekend, I'm out from like 10 a.m. all the way till like midnight. So it's like 14, 15 hours outside. This phone can finish the whole stretch with like 15-20% of battery to spare, which is good enough. Like this is considered good battery life by my heavy usage standard. So I really like what Nothing's doing because it's kind of going in a different direction from what the Chinese brands do and also what the big three, Apple, Samsung, Google are doing. Because Apple, Samsung, Google, they're trying to be as like kind of uniform as possible. Like, you know, every year the phones kind of look similar. They try to keep a consistent design that don't really stray too far from what's been established. And even the UI, like, you know, Pixel UI is like looking more and more like iOS. Like the operating system of the big three are very similar. And then you have Chinese phones, which are kind of all over the place, and they kind of all they care about is pushing for power, give you more specs, give you more numbers. And I like that actually because I'm a power user. But I like that Nothing's also going in a third direction. Not like the power-hungry Chinese brands and not like the kind of uniform mainstream look of Apple and Google. They're just trying to do its own thing. And if you are like someone who prefers to use alternative products, this is definitely worth a look. So that's about it for this review of the Nothing Phone 3. I have more coming, including a full review of the Z Fold 7, some Honor devices, and some Huawei devices too I can't talk about yet. So if you're interested in keeping up to date with the latest in consumer tech, please subscribe to my channel. It would help me a lot. Thanks for watching.